Thank you to the chairwoman, ranking member, and thank you, Secretary Perry, for being here today. Last year, I asked you about exascale and quantum computing, and today I'd like to start my questions on the existential threat of climate change and the department's efforts to accelerate our transition to clean energy. Secretary Perry, the fourth National Climate Assessment makes clear that greenhouse gas emissions from human activities are the most substantial factor in global warming over the past 6 decades. The Department of Energy is one of the 13 federal agencies in the U.S. Global Change Research Program that contributed to the assessment. So, Secretary Perry, did the Department of Energy sign off on the findings of the fourth National Climate Assessment? I'm going to make it easy. This is a yes or no question because I want to get through several questions. They did, okay. And do you agree that the National Climate Assessment is the result of collaborative peer-reviewed effort across federal agencies compiled by the nation's top scientists? Yep. Again, that's yes or no. Do you agree that it's a, yes. Okay. And according to the assessment, fossil fuel combustion accounts for 77% of our nation's total greenhouse gas emissions. Do you agree with this finding in the assessment?
Yeah. Senator, that one I've gotten to the point of, I know you're reading off, I mean, you're reading a technical report, and if that's what the technical report says, here's what I will share with you, that the climate's changing, man's having an impact, and as I've stated before, you know, I welcome a thoughtful conversation with anyone on how we can clean up the environment. You know, no matter which side of the aisle you may be on here. What we're focused on at the department is coming up with new innovation, new technology that will help us address this issue of the climate.
I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary. I have some more questions, and I'm going to ask you about that. So the assessment also identified that without a rapid decarbonization of the world's energy systems over the next few decades, it is unlikely that we'll be able to reach the 2 degrees Celsius warming target that was set in the Paris Climate Accord. Do you agree with that, in the finding in the assessment as well?
Here's what I'd like to do. I know you got a lot of questions you want to ask me that are yes or no, but I'd really like to get Paul DeBar to share with you what Fatih Birol, who's the head of the International Energy Agency, said within the last 30 days about the decarbonization of the planet.
Well, I'd like you to submit that for the record because this is your time here today. So also, Mr. Secretary, last year the Natural Resources Defense Council sent a letter to this committee outlining the failure of the Department's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or EERE, to spend the funds that were appropriated by Congress in fiscal year 2018. So the President's fiscal year 2020 budget request outlines the administration's plans to reprogram $353 million in prior year balances from EERE to help pay for fiscal year 2020 programs. The Impoundment Control Act requires the administration to obligate funds when Congress appropriates money to the executive branch. And last year, this committee learned through a GAO request from Chairwoman Johnson that the administration violated the Impoundment Control Act in 2017 by withholding 1/3 of the budget for ARPA-E. So you can understand why we're concerned about the same issue occurring at EERE. So the Impoundment Control Act does allow agencies to withhold obligation of funds when a deferral or rescission is requested by the President and approved by Congress. So Secretary Perry, are you aware of any deferrals or rescissions that Congress has approved for fiscal year 2018 or 19 funding for DOE programs?
I am not.
How do the total number of funding opportunity announcements for EERE in 19 compare to the number of announcements issued in fiscal year 18 to date?
You want to take it?
And Mr. Secretary, this is you're the witness here today. I'd like you to answer the question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to refer to my expert then, if you don't mind, ma'am.
We issued all the FOAs for EERE, and they're in the middle of submittals and reviews right now for 2019.
Mr. Secretary, will you recommit here today to distributing DOE's appropriated funds for 2019 and 2020 in accordance with congressional intent? I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, and I yield back.
Thank you.